Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a lot to talk about. First, are supporters of Luigi Mangione cult followers? ASAP Rocky was found not guilty last night. He avoids a 24-year prison sentence. Karen Reed tries again. Yep, Diddy goes there. He pulled the race card. More senseless violence in a neighbor dispute. We have this day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment. Hit that bell for notifications, and you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get to the docket, go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today, because when you do, you can do as many background searches as your little heart desires. And guess what? You have a report literally emailed to you, and that report is going to include everything you need to know about this new person that's coming into your life, or maybe somebody you think maybe they need to get out of your life. Do they have a criminal history? What's their social media presence? Do they have a criminal record? And well, do they have to put themselves on one of those sex offender registries? You know what I'm talking about. Go check them out. CrimeTalkSearch.com is the place to do it. All right. So I hope everyone enjoyed our show last night. Our live was very, I thought, interesting. We talked about Karen Reed, and I think her case is somewhat imploding. We'll find out next week. We'll talk about it more in a minute, but that's what our live was last night. So if you haven't watched it, go check it out. So let's go ahead and open the record for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. First, are Luigi Mangione followers like in a cult or something? Well, the suspected United Healthcare CEO assassin, Mr. Mangione, does he have a cult-like following that has not only donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to his defense? His supporters are now saying prosecutors who say that, you know, he was caught on camera, that this is some sort of corporate-backed narrative and that the case against him is unprecedented. Okay, so this comes as the mainstream media is being ripped for buying into the hype by his supporters. Now, for those who aren't familiar with this case, back on December 4th of 2024, a masked assailant approached the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, from behind and opened fire and shot the CEO in the back. Surveillance video shows the cold-blooded attack and a female bystander running in fear as the killer calmly walks off before heading into Central Park. Now, police have accused Mangione of being the man in the video, and they say he has made his way out of town and laid low until people found him at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Now, the police also recognized him when they approached him as well, even though he was wearing a mask. He was arrested while eating at a fast food chain, kind of ironic that he would go to such a mass corporate empire like McDonald's to eat breakfast, but hey, it is what it is. Anyway, his supporters online praise him as a figure of humanitarianism and anti-capitalism. Now, obviously, Mr. Mangione faces charges in both state and federal court, which could ultimately carry the death penalty if he's convicted in federal court. I think it's unlikely the feds will go death on him, but with the new administration, you don't know what they're going to do exactly. Anyway, federal prosecutors allege that he stalked the CEO when he arrived in New York City for a week in advance and scouted his surroundings. Police also allegedly found his DNA and fingerprints near the crime scene and say that he had a gun linked to the murder in his backpack when he was arrested in Pennsylvania. Now, the NYPD released images from the surveillance video showing him pulling his mask down and smiling while flirting with a clerk at a nearby hostel where he stayed. It went viral and immediately attracted a wave of support online for Mr. Mangione. Now, when police officers approached him, they immediately recognized him, even though he was still wearing that medical mask. Mr. Mangione then allegedly handed over a fake ID and gave a phony name. In his bag, police allegedly recovered the suspected murder weapon, a 3D printed firearm with a suppressor, and the fake ID that he used to check into that New York hostel. Police found shell casings at the scene with the message "depose, deny, and defend" written on the shell casings. Now, the words are similar to the title of the book, critical of the insurance industry, in which the victim was a key figure. Delay, deny, defend. Why insurance companies don't pay claims and what you can do about it. I haven't read the book, but my guess is they don't say, go kill the CEO of the healthcare company. The assassination happened right outside a hotel where Mr. Thompson, a married father of two, was attending a Wall Street shareholder conference later that morning. Now, Mangione's supporters say the prosecution is unprecedented and a sign of government overreach. Prosecuting people for murder is not necessarily overreach. The question becomes, is Mr. Mangione the person that did it? Obviously, there's some bad facts on Mr. Mangione's case that they are going to have to deal with. The gun, for example, the DNA evidence on the shell casings, things of that nature that tend to put him there. All right. Now, is it unusual for a state to prosecute for murder as well as the federal government? Yes. Usually they kind of decide amongst themselves how they're going to do that. But where do you see these most often? Usually in police officer involved cases where a police officer kills somebody like Rodney. Where do you see this normally? When police officers are involved in some sort of death type of situation. The officer is charged in the state court, usually for murder. And then in the federal court, the officers are usually then charged with violation of civil rights. Same facts, different charge, separate sovereign. They can do it. Is it unusual? A little bit. Is it unprecedented? No. Now, the next thing is that the prosecution and the defense are moving for the preliminary hearing to be continued in the Luigi Mangione case in federal court. They cite in their motion that basically, given the complexity of the case, they need more time to prepare. First of all, I find that a little hard to believe. This is not that complicated of a case, and I'm sure they have worked around the clock to do that. Normally, what is going on is there are some sort of plea negotiations taking place that to see whether they can resolve this case early on. That's just me. We'll just have to wait and see. The next question is Mangione going to go not guilty by reason of insanity? I don't think so. There are other commentators out there that think they will. I don't think that they will. This is going to be a case about ID. Was that really the Luigi Mangione? When all the Luigi Mangiones look alike come and sit in the state courthouse or in federal court. And two, what this is really going to come down to is jury selection. You want to find people that are going to be sympathetic to Luigi Mangione on the jury and maybe engage in a little jury nullification. So it's not a complex case. They're trying to work out a resolution. That's my hunch. Okay. I know some people don't like that. Free Luigi. I get it. I love rooting for the underdog. I really do. But as a defense attorney, you've always got to be looking at the facts. You can't ignore the facts. And sometimes I find when we talk about these cases, people become so emotionally involved in the case that you ignore the facts. And you can't ignore the facts. You must engage in intellectual honesty and say, that's a bad fact. Okay? Next, ASAP Rocky, not guilty. That's right. The verdict in the ASAP Rocky assault trial was announced last night, and he was found not guilty. Now, Rocky's partner and mother of his two sons, some woman named Rihanna, I guess, was sobbing and gave Rocky's defense attorneys, Joe Tacopina, a big hug. Now, as the jurors exited one by one, Rocky said to them, "Thank you for saving my life." Now, Rocky thanked God and the jury for allowing him to be a free man, telling reporters and fans he was happy to put the legal saga behind him. Now, Rihanna was there by Rocky's side, just as she was in court when he jumped into the gallery to hug her after the verdict was read. And Rihanna did not talk to reporters after some brief comments from Rocky. The couple then made their way to their car as they left. Now, after his client left, The attorney for ASAP ripped the prosecution and its star witness, ASAP Relly, saying Relly, not Rocky, is the real criminal here, claiming Relly perjured himself multiple times during the trial and urging the district attorney to prosecute Relly for perjury. Now, the jury, which took place in L.A., deliberated Tuesday morning after closing arguments were completed Friday afternoon. The rapper was charged with 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic weapon, and Rocky faced a possible prison sentence of 24 years if he was found guilty. Now, Rocky's real name is Rakeem Mayers, Mayers, and he was arrested back in 2022, accused of firing a gun at the former associate and friend ASAP Relly outside a hotel in Hollywood back in 2021. Rocky turned down a plea deal from prosecutors last month. Obviously, that's a big, scary thing to do. But hey, if you're innocent, you don't take plea deals, right? Anyway, Rocky's defense attorney, Joe Tacopino, maintained his clients could not have shot Mr. Relly, legal name Terrell Efron, because, well, Rocky only carried a prop gun with him at the time. Relly testified his knuckles were scraped by a bullet. Now, Rocky did not testify, though his voice was heard in the court when he yelled at his pal ASAP 12E, that's right, don't say, when prosecutors asked him on the stand what AWGE stands for. AWGE is the name of Rocky's creative agency with Fight Club. Anyway, Rihanna played a background role in the proceedings because jurors were asked whether they've heard of ASAP or this woman named Rihanna, listened to their music, or downloaded any of their songs. A jury of 7 women and 5 men, none of them black, like I said, not guilty. Next on the docket, Karen Reed is trying again. That's right. She is now asking a judge at the federal level to hear her arguments that her upcoming murder trial violates double jeopardy rules. Now, Reed's lawyers have been fighting to dismiss her second-degree murder and leaving the scene of a deadly crash charge for double jeopardy reasons. Now, double jeopardy is the legal protection that prohibits anyone from being prosecuted twice for the same crime. Reed's defense team filed a federal lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Boston on Tuesday that not eliminating the 2 charges against her is a violation of her constitutional rights against double jeopardy. This argument has failed, and it will fail again. Now, the jurors remained deadlocked on the second count of manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol. Now, last week, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts denied Karen Reed's bid to get those 2 prior charges dropped, clearing the way for the April retrial in the proceedings. Now, in that 35-page ruling from the Massachusetts highest court, they stated that the trial judge correctly denied the defendant's motion to dismiss the request of a post-trial jury inquiry, which means to bring the jurors in. The case is remanded to the county court for entry of the judgment denying the defendant's petition for relief. Now, the federal lawsuit comes the same day that the Judge Beverly Cannon, said that she has grave concerns over new information shared by the prosecutors that may have profound effects on the future of Karen Reed's murder case. Cannon made this announcement after calling for an unplanned recess in a pretrial motions hearing, abruptly sending all parties home for the day. Now, the judge stated, "The Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of the information may have profound effects on the defense and defense counsel." Cannon's call for the recess came immediately after the special prosecutor, Mr. Brennan, said in open court that Reed's defense team communicated with ARCA, the accident reconstruction experts originally hired by the federal government, about their testimony before Reed's first trial. Brennan read from what appeared to be emails between the defense and ARCA and referenced a $23,000 bill that he says that ARCA sent to the defense. Brennan called this unfair, imbalanced, and hidden in open court. Now, Brennan recently filed a motion to block the defense ARCA witnesses from testifying in Reed's retrial. And in his motion, Brennan said both Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler admittedly did not review all the pertinent and relevant evidence that exists in the case, and Dr. Wolf, an accident reconstruction specialist, and Dr. Rentschler, a biomechanical engineer specialist, both testified on behalf of Miss Reed back in June of 2024. Now, as we talked about, we brought you last night, Karen Reed sat down for an interview with the local Boston station saying that she had nothing to hide and that she's been framed for murder. I think you should go check out our live program that we did last night if you haven't seen that interview. She doesn't come across as very sympathetic. I'm surprised her attorneys would do that. Anything she says can and will be used against her. And I would have given her a little more prep. She just does not come across as likable, in my opinion. And for all the haters out there, listen, I would have found her not guilty based upon the case that the prosecution presented the first time. But as I've said before, and I will say it again, the defense never fares better the second time around. You can see the prosecution is going to be ready this time around. The question's going to be, did the defense attorneys do something unethical? And is Mr. Jackson going to be allowed to remain on the case for Karen Reed? I guess we'll find out next week. Next, Sean P. Did he do it? Combs goes there. That's right. He pulled the old race card. So old Sean P. Diddy Combs says the feds are trying to take him down purely because he is a successful black man and that they are using a law that's been racist since its inception. What law are they referring to? That's right, the Mann Act. So Diddy's attorneys filed a motion asking the judge to dismiss count 3 of the United States Attorney's indictment against him, which accuses him of transportation to engage in prostitution. Like I said, the Mann Act. Now, this Mann Act has been on the books since 1910, and P. Diddy points out through his attorneys that this is the same thing the government used to take down Chuck Berry and Jack Johnson, who is a boxer. And they also note that coincidentally, just like old P. Diddy, Sean Combs, they were all black men. Now, in their filings, Diddy's attorneys say he is being selectively prosecuted because of his race. And as his lawyers put it, no other person and certainly no white person has ever been prosecuted under the White Slave Traffic Act, the Mann Act, for hiring male escorts from another state. So basically, as you know, the feds have alleged that Diddy hired male sex workers to attend his freak-off parties, according to the prosecution. But Diddy believes he is being prosecuted for conduct that regularly goes unpunished. And Diddy's attorneys say prosecutors have built their case based upon an allegation that Mr. Combs and 2 of his longtime girlfriends sometimes brought a third party, a male escort, into their sexual relationship. Diddy's attorneys go on and say that hiring escorts is common and indeed widely accepted in American culture today. And Diddy claims the escort service related to his case is a legit business operation operating in the open. This is what gets interesting when you go into motions practice. Basically, old Sean Combs' attorneys are saying that he did the crime, but accusing the government of only charging him because he's black. And so according to these filings, the legal team believes that the whole indictment is just singled out Diddy due to his race, but especially the Mann Act portion in count 3. They basically are arguing that, hey, white people get away with this all the time. Diddy cites in his motions that the former New York governor, Eliot Spitzer, who was forced to resign in 2008 because of his little escort scandal. Sean Combs points out through his attorneys, 4 people running the escort service in Spitzer's case were charged under the Mann Act. But guess what? Spitzer himself was not. Some legitimacy to the argument? You got to go there, I guess. But I assure you, the Mann Act is prosecuted, and it doesn't just include black males. That's one isolated incident that they're referring to. And if they do a search through the federal system, you'll find that the Mann Act is, in fact, prosecuted. And it's not just black men that are prosecuted under the Mann Act. I know I've had cases where white men have been charged with basically human trafficking under the Mann Act. That's really what it is. Next, we have talked about this before. I do not know how many times. Neighbor disputes, they are the worst. They are the absolute worst. And the other thing with neighbor disputes is not only are they the worst, they usually turn violent at some point. And as somebody that has practiced criminal defense for a long time now, you get tired of seeing the absolute senseless violence. I must bring you the news. And so let me tell you about a couple of idiots in Ohio and what they did over a neighbor dispute that resulted in the killing of a 3-year-old, and that can only be described as outrageous. And it was orchestrated by a woman who was mad at her neighbor. So Juan Davis, Devontae Parker, Catherine Treadway, and Jaden Sorensen all faced a judge, and that judge was Judge Shannon Gallagher. And they were all to be sentenced on a series of charges connected to a September 2023 death of a 3-year-old named Luis Diaz. Now, the sentencing was split into 2 separate hearings, with Davis and Parker in one and Sorensen and Treadway in the other. So what happened to Juan Davis? Well, he was sentenced to serve life in prison with the possibility of parole after 49 years. He was previously found guilty of 2 counts of murder, 6 counts of felonious assault, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count of discharge of a firearm, or near a prohibited premises. Now, Judge Gallagher also found Juan Davis guilty of 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count of having a weapon under disability, and Devontae Parker was sentenced to serve life in prison with the possibility of parole after 49 years. He was previously found guilty of the following charges back in February 11th. 2 counts of murder, 6 counts of felonious assault, 3 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count of discharge of a firearm near a prohibited premises. Now, Judge Gallagher also found Devontae Parker guilty of 1 count of having a weapon under disability. The judge said, quote, "The actions here today have stolen the life of a baby. It will never leave my mind that the little boy, I will probably picture him in my head for the rest of my life, was a whole 42 inches tall. I do not know why this sticks with me so much, but it is haunting because he was so tall. We're never going to find out how tall this little boy was going to be because his life was stolen from him. He's never going to grow up. We're never going to see how tall he was going to be. He's never going to get a driver's license. He's never going to fall in love and have the opportunity to have his own kids. That's heartbreaking," end quote. When judges talk like that, you know you're going to get whacked. And those 2 deserved it. Now, Catherine Treadway, she was sentenced to serve 20 to 25 years in prison. And she said, "I acknowledge that you have no prior criminal." Well, the judge acknowledged that Ms. Treadway had no prior criminal history, but without your actions, Luis would be alive. Judge Gallagher also said that she can never that can never be disregarded. Treadway said this prior to sentencing: "I would like to apologize to you and say I apologize for the role that I played, Your Honor. I would like to say to the court that I take full responsibility for the role that I played. Whatever time you give me, I'm going to go down there and make the best of my time. That's it." She previously pled guilty to charges back in January 28th of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of felonious assault, and 1 count of having a weapon under disability. Now, Jaden Sorensen was given 11 to 15 years in prison. And when the judge announced her decision, the judge said that she did feel Sorensen's remorse, while noting that his decision after his arrest allowed for justice in this case. The judge said, quote, "The greatest chance for change is now. So I hope you see it through. Otherwise, you will not only have wasted that baby's life, but your life as well." And although he's 18 now, Sorensen was 16 at the time of the incident. And prior to being sentenced, Sorensen offered an apology. Now, Sorensen previously pled guilty to 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of felonious assault, 1 count of improperly handling a firearm in a motor vehicle. Now, how did all this happen? Well, it goes back to September of 2023, when the prosecutor's office say the argument broke out between Treadway and an acquaintance, where the 2 were neighbors and shared a duplex on Denison Avenue there in Cleveland. Now, after the argument, Treadway called her boyfriend, who was identified as Davis, and moved her vehicle out of the driveway. That's when the prosecutors say Davis drove to a nearby street where Parker and Sorensen exited the vehicle. Parker, holding a handgun, and Sorensen, holding a rifle, ran towards the rear of the nearby residence and fired multiple shots across the street towards the victim's vehicle. Now, Parker and Sorensen ran back to Davis's vehicle, where Davis was waiting with the car still running. Now, all three fled the scene. The man who was standing outside of a vehicle at the time of the shooting was struck in the foot. At least 5 gunshots struck the vehicle, including one bullet that traveled through Luis Diaz's car seat, hitting him in the back, according to the prosecution. Now, Luis was taken to the hospital, but obviously didn't survive. 2 others were also in the vehicle during the shooting, including a man in the front seat and an 11-month-old in the back seat. Now, Davis was also charged in a previous unrelated criminal case in which Treadway was listed as the victim. Neighbor disputes, ladies and gentlemen, let him go. Let him go. No, you're in my parking spot. You parked in my spot. That's my spot. Your kid's ball rolled into my front yard. How dare you? I'm going to seize it. I'm telling you, let it go. And if your neighbor's a jerk, let it go. It's not worth dying over, ladies and gentlemen. Next, this day in legal history, on February 19th, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, authorizing the wartime internment of Japanese Americans. And guess what? On February 19th, 1976, President Gerald Ford formally rescinded Executive Order 9066, which had authorized the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Obviously, this was an acknowledgement of the injustice committed and paved the way for reparations and legislative measures to prevent similar violations of citizens' civil liberties in the future. And on this date, in 1881, Kansas became the first U.S. state to enact a constitutional amendment prohibiting all alcoholic beverages. Obviously, that move influenced the temperance movement and set the stage for the national prohibition in the early 20th century. And on this day in 1923, the United States Supreme Court in Rule v. Dempsey that federal courts have the authority to review state criminal trials to ensure defendants' constitutional rights are upheld. Now, that landmark decision allowed federal intervention in state criminal cases where due process was violated, strengthening the protection of individual rights under the 14th Amendment. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. That's right. The police used a fingerprint lifted off a goldfish package. That's right, a goldfish package to identify and arrest a man for hitting a female Family Dollar manager in the face with the bag of crackers when she confronted him about stealing from the store. So police allege that Michael Gonzalez, aka Gonzo, struck the 65-year-old victim after walking out of a Florida business with approximately $50 worth of cleaning supplies and a box of goldfish crackers. The victim approached Mr. Gonzalez and handed the store goods to the passenger in a vehicle parked at this Gulfport store. Upon being challenged by the woman, Gonzalez allegedly hit her in the face with the goldfish crackers, causing a small cut on her lip. But you'll also have to consider that the woman's age is 65, at-risk adult. Ooh, suddenly felony stuff there, Mr. Gonzo Gonzalez. Anyway, Mr. Gonzalez was arrested for strong-armed robbery in connection with that September 2024 goldfish incident. Bet it's not all smiles now, is it, Gonzo? Anyway, he was in custody for an alleged robbery during which he apparently stole a skateboard from a man who he punched as well and then stabbed in the face and head. Anyway, surveillance images from the Family Dollar store show Mr. Gonzalez, who has several distinctive tattoos, including one between his eyes, reportedly admitted to the cops that he was the individual in the photo. And throughout his interview, he said, hey, man, this is just petty stuff, and he should just get some credit for time served. Well, apparently everybody else disagrees with that. His bond's currently set at $30,000 for the 2 pending felony robbery cases. And this is not Mr. Gonzalez's first time with the law. He has arrest records with convictions for theft, trespass, robbery, cocaine possession, disorderly conduct, and attempted armed robbery. And he also spent a little stint in the Florida Department of Corrections. And my guess is that's where Gonzo Gonzalez is going back to. And $50 worth of cleaning stuff and some crackers, goldfish crackers. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Mr. Gonzo Gonzalez, you are our dumb criminal of the day. Congratulations, you made it. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.